Please stand by.
Informed, in-depth, factual, focused. Honest opinions are made here.
You better double-check that, my friend.
What are we talking about?
You're listening to the final year of UNL's longest-running sports talk show, Delay of Game.
Being the controversial person that I am, wanting to stir up trouble.
Take that with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Take advantage of the home ice advantage.
On 90.3 KRNU.
As in D-A-W-G-Z, dogs, homeboy.
What kind of cookies you eating, man?
And streaming worldwide, online at krnu.unl.edu.
That's why I don't read the newspaper.
Now, from the Roy Lenwell Studios inside Anderson Hall.
Yeah, as a Cubs fan, it's far more frustrating.
Here are Ryan Swanigan, Cody Broder, and Michael Snow.
Just sit back and enjoy the show.
America, actually, let me take that back. Nebraska, you wanted it, and now you've got it. You have successfully, at least 50% of you, have successfully helped fire Bo Pelini. And, what did we drop, 3 recruits?
At least.
Yeah. So we lost 3 recruits. One of them is a great running back.
Wasn't it they're a 3-star run? That was the running back.
That was the offensive lineman.
That was the offensive lineman. Then there's a running back, and then a defensive lineman, right?
Yep. So that's 3. 3 recruits within 12 hours. I don't know. I don't think there has been any more. I could be wrong. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I mean, at this juncture, you kind of just never know because.
Well, that's a risk.
Possible.
It's a risk.
Oh,
when you fire the guy that they're looking up to at this point as a father figure.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not going to stay, most likely. I mean, when you look at coaches and what happens in the recruiting process, I mean, they pretty much become the guy that they look up to outside of the family, and they become someone special in their lives, you know? I mean, it's their guide away from home pretty much at that point.
And that's why you saw such a drastic response on Twitter from current players, former players, recruits, 2015 recruits, 2015 recruiting class possibilities. You saw all of it, and I don't think anybody was really expecting it to be that big. Quite honestly, I thought that was really the most surprising thing of the whole situation with Bo Pelini being fired. Just the response that was on Twitter was just really surprising, really just caught fire. Ben McLaughlin is standing by, and let's get to him here with this. Only fitting.
Time now for the segment everyone has been waiting for.
Catch your breath, everyone.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage.
The part of the show where Ben McLaughlin gets a little crazy.
Lob pass to Caleb Walker. Alley-oop slams it home.
Here's my point, okay? It's Division I football! It's the Big 12! It ain't intramurals!
Take that with a little bit of a grain of salt.
What is Ben fired up about this time?
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.
I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice.
Hide your children. It's Ben's Rant of the Week. Presented by Delay of Game.
Catch your breath, everyone.
And here he is via the Delay of Game Intensis hotline. Ben McLaughlin joining us. All right, Ben. First of all, I saw your Facebook post last night, and I commend you for that. Just brilliant work once again, sharing your thoughts and good stuff to read. But why don't you share with all of our listeners your thoughts on Bo Pelini being fired yesterday?
Well, I think, Ryan, the first thing is, I was a little surprised, I think, as most people are, with the timing of it. I think if we did expect a change to come, we thought it would be, Saturday morning. Instead, we wake up, no email, no Twitter explosion, and everything's kosher, everything's good. We just buckle our seatbelts for a good day of college football.
Mm-hmm.
And then we, of course, wake up on Sunday to a completely different tune. I think that's kind of what surprised me most was the day in which it happened. You hear the term all the time, the Black Monday, and that's today, of course, of where, athletic directors are common to let the coaches know their fate for the next season. Well, I expected either Saturday or Monday. I didn't expect Sunday, but that happened, and I think it was pretty surreal for me. It was hard to believe it was real. Of course, there's speculation and rumors and talk, or people calling for Bo's head for years. And the moment that it finally happens, you kind of take a step back and you just say, wow, it really happened, and it's just a bizarre feeling. It's a weird feeling, and I think as fans and as members of the media, your first thought becomes, who's the next guy? Who are we going to go get? Who? Let's talk about this search. And, I think that's an incredible disservice. I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying I'm not, but I think it is a huge disservice to the kids, to the players. And, I'm lucky enough to spend a lot of time with the kids and get to know them as people. That's part of the reason why I wanted to be successful so bad, is because, I know them personally, and, you just want that for them. And so my first thought wasn't who's Nebraska going to go hire. It's how are the players feeling about it. Mm-hmm. And I was hurting for the kids. I was hurting for guys like Josh Mitchell, who sold out for the program. And if it weren't for Bo Pelini, might not be playing college football right now. And who knows what happens to that guy. Or guys like Amir Abdullah, who have been such a tremendous ambassador for this program for so long. And there's no way he's coming here if it's not for Bo Pelini. And Nate Gary, and you could say the same for every player on the roster. You get calls from fans all the time, or here on message boards, who would want to play for Bo? Who would want to send their kid to go play for Bo? Well, everybody that wears a helmet with the N on it right now would run through a wall for that guy. So
absolutely.
That points valid. So, that's kind of how I look at it. My first thought was, man, this is bizarre. This is weird. And then my next thought was, my thoughts were with the kids.
Sean Eichhorst essentially, before we get to Sean Eichhorst, going a little bit further with the response from the players and former players, what were you really kind of surprised at the just incredibly large response from current players and former players and anybody who was a fan of Nebraska? Were you surprised by the response, the negative response, really, towards Sean Eichhorst for this decision?
No, not at all. I wasn't surprised at all. In fact, I expected it, because I'll tell you why. When you have a head coach like Bo Pelini, and I don't know if you guys, how much experience you've had with Bo personally or know him as a person, but he's about one thing, and that's family. Whether it be his own, whether it be his players' families, his coaches' families, that's what he's all about. That's his number one moral in life, is family. And it's the same way with his football team. You usually have attrition, Ryan. You'll have guys like that. You had it at Florida. You had guys saying, they want to play for Will Muschamp, and you have it other places. But when you have a head coach whose fundamental value in life is family, and that's how he gets kids to campus, it means a little more to him. I can promise you, Bo Pelini has a better relationship with his players than about 90%, if not more, than other coaches in America. It's because the thing we forget these kids don't have parents in Lincoln. Not everybody is Josh Banderas and has a family 15 minutes from the university.
Mm-hmm.
Their families are in Florida. Their families are in Texas. Their families are in California and Arizona. Bo is their father. Bo acts like a father figure to him. So, no, I wasn't surprised at all hearing the response from the players and sticking up for what they believe in. And it's like losing a family member to them. And many of them, who have grown up under Bo, and who knows where they would be without Bo, may feel lost. And I think that's kind of where that feeling comes from, where they take to Twitter and they take to social media. They feel lost and they feel abandoned.
Is it upsetting almost that the media, well, let me rephrase this question. Do you think that the media just doesn't fully understand that? I mean, not just necessarily you and I, but, guys like maybe people who write for the World Herald or the Journal-Star or any news outlets in Omaha or Lincoln. Do you think that they kind of don't understand that full-on fact that the players have this connection with Bo Pelini and it drastically affects them, whereas the media, in a sense, they are frustrated with how Nebraska's losing on the field and, they're not seeing development of success from the players. Do you think the media just doesn't understand the more general, aspect of life in a sense?
I think it may be tough to tell. I think, unless you played sports at a pretty high level, whether it be high school or college, if you don't know what a player-coach relationship is like, then I don't think you can really understand. I don't think you can understand. And, I wasn't lucky or blessed enough to play collegiate sports. I played in high school, but I never played in college. And I have to imagine when you go away from home, when you go 1,000 miles from your home and never get to see your family, that relationship can only be stronger. In high school, we all had our coaches that some of us had them as teachers during the day, and then we'd go to practice, but then we'd get to go home. We'd get to drive 10 minutes to our houses and be done with it and go talk to our families. Players can't do that in college. Most of them can anyway. So I feel like some of them may not have had that experience and really know what it's like to have a coach like that. And I feel like, maybe others think the story is bigger elsewhere. Everybody loves to go where their stories are, or follow a lead, or write what your listeners or your audience wants to read or listen to. And right now the fan base doesn't really care about that. And honestly, it's a little sad in my opinion.
Agreed.
People want to talk about who's coming here, or how are we going to rebuild a program, or Barney Cotton being the interim coach. The thoughts aren't worth the players, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. But at the same time, I can't really blame them because, they're an outlet for a lot of people, and it's not their fault that people don't really care about that. But I would agree that it's a disservice to the kids.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that's something I kind of reiterated. And from what I heard, Ben McLaughlin, the Husker Sports Network, what I heard from Sean Eichhorst yesterday was he was making, at least he came across as if he was making that point clear that this is about the student athletes, and as he said, along the way, we may win championships with it. Do you believe he's really telling the truth on that, or is this just something for him to say so that way he's trying to satisfy both the media and the student athletes?
I do. For the most part, I think Sean did a pretty good job with the press conference yesterday. I give him credit for stepping up and doing his best to answer every question the media had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for crying out loud, he answered questions for 30 minutes. But, I think at the same time he was very careful what he says. Sean's a very smart guy, very, very bright man. So he wasn't going to say anything controversial or that he shouldn't have anyway. But I think for the most part he did a pretty good job. And, I feel like he's genuine when he says he cares about the student athletes. The common debate to that has been, at least in the last 24 hours, if that was the case, why did he send an email to the players? He didn't even meet with them. Well, I think if you're going to dig into that, you have to either A, believe him when he says I didn't make the decision until Saturday night and all the players were at home, or B, realize that, you know, it was probably impossible to tell those guys either before or after or wherever you made the decision in a group setting at that time. It's just so difficult with all the players going home for the holidays. I think it just makes that situation kind of tough. But in the same boat, I can completely understand the players' frustration and how they found out that they're now without a coach. And the same guy that was in their living room asking them to come play for him is now gone. So I can understand the frustration from both parties in that regard. You know, I think it's just kind of a tough situation, and Sean Eichhorst did his best to deal with it as best he could.
Moving forward with Sean Eichhorst, do you think that he has finally kind of, for the very first time, put his foot down and said, this is who I am, this is what we're going to do for Nebraska, not just for the fan base or for the program, but essentially more like for these student athletes so they can succeed? Do you think that he finally put his foot down and I guess satisfied the expectations that everybody was looking from him?
Well, I don't know that he ever really didn't or didn't care or wasn't trying to live to those expectations that he set up in that first press conference that he had back when he was hired. I just don't know how much of it we got to experience or saw because he never talked to us. Mm-hmm. You know, we never knew. We never knew what he was doing. We never knew, you know, behind the scenes what he was doing or that anything of that nature. But I think, you know, by far, and this is the same, you know, at every program, the biggest move you can make is changing head football coaches. And now that he's made that move, it's kind of his reputation right now. You know, before he never, you know, he said when he got here, he never wanted to be the star of the show. He never wanted to be the spotlight to be on him. He wanted all the spotlight to be on his players and on his coaches because they deserve it. Well, when you make a move of this magnitude, you really don't have, you can't hide behind a curtain. You know, you're out there in the forefront. You're responsible, and now he's responsible for bringing in a guy that he thinks is the best fit for this program and can take it in a place that, you know, he wants it to be. And as he said yesterday, that's a championship level. That's a lot of responsibility, but he seems confident and determined in himself to find the right guy and the best guy to come replace Bo. And, you know, it's a big responsibility to take, but obviously he felt it was worth the risk. If he didn't, he wouldn't have made the move that he did.
Ben McLaughlin, Husker Sports Network, joining us here. Ben, before we let you go, to kind of transition a little bit here, Nebraska men's basketball tonight against Florida State. Give us your thoughts on how you think this matchup goes down.
Well, I think it'll be a good test for them. You know, obviously the first road game with Rhode Island didn't go well, and this team struggled on the road last year too. So, you know, Florida State's record may not be good. I know they've lost to some subpar competition so far this year, but it's ACC talent. You know, it's not going to be a pushover game, and anytime you go play on the road, it's a tough responsibility. But I think these players kind of need to grow up, and I think it starts right in the first 5 minutes of the game. We've seen this team struggle out of the gate all season long, and that can't happen against good competition because they'll get buried one of these times. So they need to come out strong. I think defensively, they need to keep up the efforts that they've had. I'd like to see, you know, more offensive efficiency from this team. Walt Pitchford finally started to get going. Taran Petaway has been kind of hit and miss. I'd like to see him become more of a complete player, not just a scorer. But if they can walk away from Tallahassee with a win tonight, they got to be feeling pretty good about it and get themselves ready for what's going to be a really tough non-conference stretch here with Creighton and Cincinnati coming up.
Yeah, definitely. Ben McLaughlin from the Husker Sports Network. Ben, thanks again, as always, for coming on, and I'm glad that you and I both share essentially the same thoughts on the student-athletes and the players for this program, and let's hope that no further damage, I guess, to them in any possible way is done.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Ben. Michael Snow with us in the sports booth, and we're taking your calls throughout the show. Michael is in there. Are you ready for this, Michael?
Yeah.
I had a baby. 402-472-8274. That is the phone number that you will be able to call and hear Michael's lovely voice on the other end. Your thoughts, Michael? I know you just joined us now and you got to hear Ben. We have Lanny Holstein in about 10 minutes, but your thoughts. It finally actually happened. It's now time to move forward from Bo Pelini because he was fired.
Yeah, I thought it was my day to sleep in when we found out, and I woke up at 9:30, 10, whenever it was. I was planning on sleeping until at least noon, but I woke up to like 7, 8, 9 texts asking what was happening and what I thought, and I was like, well, what are you guys talking about? And then one of them finally said, what do you think about Bo being fired? So obviously I open up Twitter and go on all the different websites and see that he is gone. And I mean, right away it was kind of like Ben said, you kind of expected it, but when it did happen, you were kind of like, holy crap, it happened. A lot of Husker fans have been saying, he needs to go, he needs to be fired. But I think now that it actually happened, those same Husker fans are like, holy cow, it's finally happened. It's here. Now I'm kind of nervous because, I mean, let's face it, 9 wins looks good on paper. Now, honestly, I think whoever comes in next year, I don't think there's any way they lose less or they win less than 8 games simply because of the talent on this team. There's phenomenal talent on here, so I think there's no way whoever comes in is going to win less than 8 games. So a lot of people are worried about the Bill Callahan type hire where, the 5-6 wins could happen next year. I really don't see that happening. Now, obviously, I could be wrong, but yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I was on I think you were as well, Ryan, the side of things where it says as long as Bo makes changes to the staffs, it'll be okay, and we can move forward from there. But yeah, it was surprising to me. Now, where do we go? Where does Nebraska go from here? I mean, the way Eichhorst talked, it sounded like he had his guy.
Yeah,
it sounded like this was gonna. I would be shocked if by the end of the week Nebraska doesn't have a new head coach. Now, I think it's very important for Nebraska to get that head coach hired quickly to do not only damage control with the recruits, but with the current players and with the future players past this next year's recruiting class. Because, I mean, listen, these recruits were planning on playing for Bo Pelini, and we saw yesterday there's 3 recruits who have decommitted now, some pretty touted ones.
Yep.
One of them now is probably going to commit to Ohio State, so there's a wide receiver right now who's really thinking about decommitting as well. He said he's still committed to the program, but he's definitely reopening his thoughts. But while you lose recruits, if you bring in a guy, I don't want to throw names out there just because it's almost pointless at this point to try and guess who it's going to be. Mm-hmm. But if you bring in a different kind of guy, they're going to bring in different kinds of recruits. You're going to lose recruits, you're going to gain recruits when you hire a coach. That's simply what happens. If you bring a guy who's at a different school right now, he could bring a couple of his recruits over. So there's really a chance that in this year's recruiting class, I think it's down to 11 now, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe lower than that, but
as of the latest, it's still 11.
Yeah, it'll probably get lower. There will probably be different guys to commit or decommit. I think right now, if this recruiting class ends up around 14, 15 where it was, that'd be fine. You're in a transition period now as a program. There's a lot of weight that comes with that. So there is going to be some bumps in the road, but I mean, you go out and get a guy who's worthy of the head coaching spot at Nebraska, he's going to be able to recruit. That's a big time thing in Nebraska. And everybody's saying Bo Pelini couldn't recruit. That was flat out wrong. In the Big Ten West, he was by far the best recruiter. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Oh, yeah.
The numbers show it. Since 2011, in the Big Ten West, Nebraska has 26 four-star recruits. Team after that, Wisconsin with 13. Iowa had 1.
Yep.
Bo Pelini could recruit. That wasn't the issue. So people saying that's a big reason why he got fired, they're just simply wrong. The issue was after they get to campus, the development of the players. And that's where the Nebraska's going to have to see the next big step with this next coach. Nebraska can get guys here. That's not an issue, but it's developing them into the next level type of player. And really, there are a lot of guys out there who have the ability to do that. And that again is why I really don't think the next coach is going to have just a huge letdown year. A lot of fans are worried about the Bill Callahan type guy, but I just don't see that happening with the amount of talent coming back, the amount of injured talent coming back next year. So it's exciting. I mean, it's a nervous excitement, but it's still exciting for Husker fans because they haven't been in this spot for 7 years. A lot of them have been calling for it the past 3 or 4 years, but now it's here, and now Eichhorst, this is his chance. Sorry, Cody, I got one more point. If he messes up here, he's done. Nobody's going to want to hire him. So this is Eichhorst's big chance.
Yeah, definitely. This is the biggest point of Eichhorst's career for sure. But Michael kind of touched on it there. The people that have wanted Bo gone for so long, the last 4 or 5 years, even I guess with his last wave of assistant coaches that he brought in, they got what they wanted. And like Michael said, it was kind of a shock for everyone when it happened because you just don't expect a 9-10 win coach to get fired. And after they saw the player reactions, I just wonder, people out there who wanted Bo fired, if their opinions changed on the situation. Like, were they like, oh, geez, this is not good? Because you have to worry about also those players potentially transferring as well if they don't like the next coach.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You go out and you look at what some of the players tweeted out, and I mean, they were pissed. They were very, very upset in past former players. I mean, you saw a bunch of former players. Deontay Evans comes to mind saying worst decision. Quincy Nunn was another guy who came out and said, listen, Bo Pelini was like a dad to me. I mean,
Jack Anguish tweeted out the email that he received from Eichhorst, Tommy Armstrong,
Tourné saying this is the biggest mistake ever. I mean,
Westerkamp.
There are a lot of guys who I really don't think anybody's going to transfer. I think the majority of the players here who contributed last year, I guess I should say, are here for the long haul, especially if you go out and get another guy with a little bit of weight behind his name, whether it be, best case scenario, in my opinion, Tressel, or whether it be a guy like Scott Frost or anybody really. As long as you go out and get a guy, Pat Narduzzi, somebody with a little bit of weight behind their name, the players should stick around. But after Bo got fired, there was no doubt these players truly loved the guy. I mean, a lot of people may have thought, these guys are just saying that because he's their head coach currently. No, I mean, he got fired, and the players were legitimately upset.
Yeah, you don't see that big of a response if they don't like Bo Pelini. And we saw almost an outrageous number of tweets from current players. I mean, even the two players that came to my mind immediately were Leroy Alexander and Avery Moss, because they're both suspended right now. They said they were coming back next season because Bo got to them and said, you will have a place here if you stay. So they're coming.
They
they
still
were supposedly Leroy Alexander tweeted out, the man has always had our backs and did anything he could to help us. If it wasn't for Bo, a lot of us wouldn't even be here. I think Leroy Alexander, the kid who is suspended right now, summed it up. That's exactly what you just heard Ben McLaughlin say.
Yeah, and I was actually fairly surprised at the amount the players were tweeting. Bo's always been the type of guy to not comment on things and not be a big part of the social media and whatnot, and his players kind of started taking after him. Obviously, there were some outliers in Kenny Bell and Amir Abdullah, but I mean, you wouldn't see a lot of guys tweet out, maybe Matt Finnan, but that's another story in itself. But you wouldn't see a lot of guys tweet out things that they were truly emotional about and get upset on social media. And I mean, they got really, really upset, and it shocked me. I mean, going in there and seeing the amount of tweets and the amount of players and who really, I mean, and you saw Randy Gregory on his Facebook. He tweeted out, well, I guess you know what this means.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's done.
I mean, please, Randy, you have to go. It's for your own good.
Yeah.
I wish you would stay because that'd be awesome for Nebraska, but I mean, that just set it in stone. If there was a chance Randy comes back, that would have been sweet, but obviously it didn't happen, or it sounds like it won't happen. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt right now that the players absolutely loved Bo Pelini and really looked up to the guy. And I mean, you can't blame them for being upset and calling out some Nebraska fans. And the Nebraska fans who were tweeting at the players, that's pathetic.
Yeah,
you don't do that. You don't
have a right to do that because you're not on the team.
Well, and there was a guy trying to get players to leave and to get recruits to leave. He's tweeting at all the recruits and all the players, and Dude, you're pathetic. I mean, you are the epitome of a terrible Husker fan. You can't be doing that. I don't care if they would have fired Tom Osborne the year after they win a national championship. Don't come out and go at the players. This is not their choice. They're going to be upset. Imagine when if you have a guy who recruits you for 2 years in high school, you play for him for 3 or 4 years in college, you've known the guy for 6 years, he's been a father figure to you, and then he's all of a sudden just completely gone. I mean, that kind of thing happens, and you're going to be upset with it. There's no reason to be mad at these players for being upset. Now, if they call out the fans and group them all together in one, maybe, but still. It's just outrageous for players or for people to be tweeting and attacking the players.
Guys like Rex Burkhead and Dominican Sue, I think, had the one of the more interesting tweets.
Yeah, he was not happy.
Everything. The leadership issues at the University of Nebraska extend above the head football coach's office. So there's a shot from Sue at anybody above Bo Pelini, probably Sean Eichhorst or athletic director or athletic department in general. You had Prince Amukamara, DeJon Gomes, Brandon Kinney, PJ Mangieri, Cole Penzick, Mike Mowdy, Vincent Valentine, Eric Martin. Of course, we all know Josh Mitchell was basically leading this charge. Will Compton, 2 periods after that. Michael Rose-Ivy, Terrence Moore, Jamarcus Hardrick, a.k.a. Yoshi Hardrick, Spencer Long, Zach Stirrup, Alonzo Whaley. I mean, even Bo Pelini, of course, with the I guess the more hilarious tweets there. But I mean, everybody just kind of in shock. And we go now back to the delay of game intensive hotline. And Lanny Holstein from 93.7 The Ticket now joins us. Lanny, what were you surprised at the reaction that was? I mean, just that exploded from current players, former players, and anybody who knew what Nebraska was about, who was a fan of Nebraska, what have you. Were you surprised by the enormous, I guess, outcry from Twitter?
Not really, guys. I mean, those are guys that played for Bo Pelini, so they love Bo Pelini. That's why they came to Nebraska. So, honestly, no, not really. I mean, I think there were some fans that outcried from it a little bit. I think there was also a good chunk of them that liked it. I actually thought, as far as the fan base goes, that it really united people mostly. Like the people that wanted Bo Pelini gone were happy, obviously, that they got their wish, and the people that wanted him to stay were still pretty receptive to a new coach. They were kind of like, well, I wanted Bo Pelini to stay, but if he's gone, the move's already been made. It's over. So what are we getting? Let's move on to the next page. But as far as the players go, I mean, what did you expect them to do? Like, just be happy that their father figure, that their coach was fired? I mean, I think that some level of that is expected. And same way with the recruiting class. The Nebraska lost 3 guys out of the recruiting class, and I saw some people yesterday on Twitter freaking out about that. And I just thought, well, what did you think was going to happen? I mean, like, these guys committed to Bo Pelini and coaches on his staff, and when you tell them that, hey, those guys aren't going to be there anymore, well, sure. I mean, they're going to leave. To me, that's just pretty obvious.
Yeah, and Lanny Holstein, 93.7 The Ticket, Morning Take, joining us. Sam Hahn tweeting this out. We all came here to play for Coach Bo, so the fate of our program lies in the hands of a man who is only here until the Wisconsin AD job opens up. This should turn out well. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's kind of a really almost a radical idea. But Barry Alvarez is going to retire from Wisconsin soon. Sean Eichhorst is an athletic director power. But Eichhorst seemed to really prove, at least from what I saw yesterday and heard, that he has bought into this Nebraska program and he's going to try and build it up from here. What are your thoughts?
Well, a couple things with Sean Eichhorst. First and foremost, if you watched that press conference from Sunday when they fired Bo Pelini and the way that Sean Eichhorst handled that, the way he handled the questions, the way he worded his answers, I came away from that thing extremely impressed. What Nebraska has.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean, I couldn't believe how good this guy sounded, how good his plan was, how confident he was. And this is a guy we don't know a lot about. I mean, this is a guy that's been here for a very short period of time. And even his history before Nebraska, you don't have much to go on. I mean, you're looking at a guy
that a lot of people, there's a misconception out there that he hired Al Golden as the football coach at Miami. He did not hire Al Golden as the football coach, so you can't hold that against him. The only really coach that he actually has hired at the D1 level was Jim Larinaga, the basketball coach at Miami. And Jim Larinaga's done a great job. He looks like a really good hire. But again, it's still early in Jim Larinaga's career as well at Miami, and that's the only one you can really go off of. So we don't really know much about what kind of a coach he's looking for, what kind of a search process run by him, what he usually looks like when he runs a search process. So there are a lot of unknowns with him, but and again, he doesn't talk very much too. I think it's something that he gets ripped quite a bit by Lincoln radio stations and press writers and all that those kind of folks. The media, I guess you could just lump everyone together and say that just because he's so kind of quiet, he stays away out of the limelight. But if you ask me, I don't want my AD in front of the limelight. I don't want him making a bunch of bold statements. I want him to be kind of behind the scenes, picking the right individuals to run their individual programs and just kind of letting them do their thing. Maybe be more of a budgetary guy, a fundraiser, that type of thing. And I think he's done a pretty good job of that to this point. But obviously, as you guys know, what determines whether or not you are a good AD or a bad AD is what you do with the football coach at Nebraska. I mean, yeah, it's nice if you hire a good basketball coach. It's nice if you hire a good baseball coach and do this or do that with the fundraising. But it really comes down to the guy you hired for the football program. How well does he do? And to this point, I think this is a guy with a plan. I think this is a guy that's probably going to have I don't know. He didn't throw a timeline out. He obviously left it open. Didn't want to pin himself into a window. But I would say next week or so, I think you're going to have another coach hired at Nebraska. I think he seems that confident. Seems like he's got somebody on his radar. So so that answered part of your question. The other part about the Wisconsin thing and would he leave and is he a temporary AD? I mean, it's hard to speculate on that. Yeah, he did come up underneath Barry Alvarez, who's the AD at Wisconsin, and to give him his first real crack at things over there. I guess you could say he's a quote-unquote Wisconsin guy, but, I mean, Nebraska, in the grand scheme of things, is a better athletic department than Wisconsin's is. I mean, and I'm talking not just football, but I'm talking, baseball, I'm talking women's volleyball, I'm talking softball. The women's sports especially are really good at Nebraska. Track and field is good, both men's and women's. I mean, I'm just talking overall athletic departments as far as just, success, money, all that kind of stuff, prestige of the job. Nebraska is going to bring you more. So Wisconsin would only take him away if he just felt like he wanted to go home, I guess.
Lanny, you talked about how quick this hiring process might be. How important do you think it is for it to be a quick process? Because we've already seen the kids decommit. Obviously, the players who are not graduating this year, they also have a decision ahead of themselves if they were that big into Bo Pelini, if they really saw him as highly as they do. And it sounded like a lot of these guys held Bo Pelini like a father figure, kind of like you talked about. So how important do you think it is for I-Course to come in and get a guy hired quickly to really do damage control with the players? Because, I mean, they are hurt. And even the recruits a little bit, too. You've seen a couple of them tweet out, listen, I signed on to play for Bo Pelini. How important is it for the next guy to come in and just right away hit the ground running?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, I remember back when Bo Pelini got hired, 7 years ago, and one of the first things that any coach has to do is you've got to go through and re-recruit the players that are on your team. You got to get major key guys that are thinking about transferring to other schools to stay. And one of the biggest battles that Bo Pelini fought was he had to re-recruit Ndamukong Suh. That was a guy who was thinking about leaving, came to play for Nebraska, came to be a part of that program. He came from Oregon, and what happened there was he thought he was going to go back home to Oregon. He's from I can't think of the name of the town, but some small town in Oregon, and he wanted to go back there and play for the Ducks. And they were going to take him. I mean, he's a really talented guy. The Ducks were going to welcome him in with open arms. They were his number 2 school out of high school, and Bo came in, and Bo sat down with each and every one of the players, but one of the big ones was obviously Ndamukong Suh, and he convinced him, like, hey, I just came from LSU. I just sent Glenn Dorsey to the NFL. He's one of the most highly respected defensive tackles in SEC history at this point. And we all know he hasn't had a great NFL career, but at this point he was a really hot prospect, and he was, drafted first round. And, and by all means, he was an excellent, excellent college football player. And so Bo was able to sell him and say, hey, I'm going to do the same thing I did with him. I'm going to do that with you. You are going to be a stud. And it ended up working that way. Like, all of that came true. But, I mean, that's a key part of this thing is you got to come in and you've got to keep key players on the roster. And I don't think that you're going to be able to keep, like, a Randy Gregory, regardless of who comes in, how persuasive he is. I would guess that guy's gone. I mean, he's a first-round draft pick most likely this year. Could be as high as number 1 overall. And I also just think he's a guy that doesn't necessarily like the college aspect as much. He really just is probably about, getting on to the future, going and making that money. So I would guess he's gone. But a lot of other key pieces you got to keep around. And as far as just like when that starts, like if they have to hire him in the next week or so to get that done, or if it's 2-3 weeks, if that creates a problem. I mean, obviously, the longer you wait, the more uncertainty that swirls, the more a guy thinks about his spot and maybe thinks, yeah, it might be better if I just take off and go find something now. I think that could be part of it, but as long as you do this thing reasonably quickly, I mean, I don't think it matters much if it's 7 days versus 10 days versus 11 days. I mean, I think you'd be all right. And I think you see these things happen. The majority of players usually do stick around. I mean, the majority of Nebraska's roster is going to come back to Nebraska next year. I don't have any doubts about that. You'll probably get a few guys transfer here and there, but it's just part of it.
Lanny Holstein, 93.7 The Ticket, joining us. Finally here, Lanny. So moving forward, who do you think is probably the next best bet for a head coach here at Nebraska?
Man, that is so hard to answer that. Like, there is no one guy that you think is likely. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been following the Twitter sphere today. I mean, Jim Tressel, there was a report from a radio host in Cleveland that said that he's not coming to Nebraska. This is a guy that played football for Jim Tressel as a player. I think back on the 2002 national championship team, he was on that. He's now a radio show host in Cleveland. So I guess I'd never heard of the guy, but I would tend to believe him as a source because he can't be making a living spewing inaccuracies on the radio, and he's also as a kind of an analyst for I think CBS and maybe ESPN, I think is what his bio said. So I tend to believe that you can kind of cross Tressel off your list at least tentatively at this point, but some other candidates out there. It's hard to know, guys, because you talk about the way that this process has been handled, and I think it's the right way. It's just all behind closed doors, and so Jim McElwain's been thrown out there. He's a guy I would love to see come in here from Colorado State right now, doing a good job with that program. He's been previously at Alabama as an OC, but again, he's a candidate. Florida has talked with him, or at least they've explored getting information on him. Came out today that he's one of their guys that they're going after. We have not heard the same thing about Nebraska, so I don't really know where he stands with them. Scott Frost was asked about it by the media today, and he's obviously the OC at Oregon right now. He said that, just please don't ask me questions about this, basically just a big old no comment on the job. He was asked about it last year, though, and said that he would be interested if Nebraska ever approached him. But again, we don't really know where anything's gone with that. One other guy, Joe Moglia, who was an unpaid assistant coach, like an intern-level guy with Nebraska underneath Bo Pelini a few years back. I think it was about 5-6 years ago. Has since gone to be a pretty solid coach. He's at Coastal Carolina right now, and has done well. And that team's won that conference. I think it's the Big South Conference that they're in a couple years in a row, and doing good things. He's a former TD Ameritrade CEO, so he's people always talk about they want a CEO coach in here. After Bo Pelini was kind of a loose cannon, you want more of a cerebral, organizational leader type guy. He would fit that bill. But again, he was talked to by the World Herald, and if you read their story, he doesn't want to comment on it because he says, if they have talked to me, and I'm not going to admit it, but if they have talked to me, then it'd be inappropriate for me to talk to you about that. And if they haven't, then you probably think that I'm misleading you. So I'm just going to sit here and say nothing because that's the way that business deals are usually done. So big, long answer right there, guys. But basically, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think everybody is playing the guessing game right here. Lanny Holstein from 93.7 The Ticket Morning Take from 7 to 8 every day, or every weekday, I should say, 93.7. Lanny, as always, thanks, my friend. Continued success toward you and Jake, and we'll talk to you again soon, my friend.
Yep, no problem, guys. See you later.
We are actually going to do the list of coaches in the next half hour. I want to get to some poll results here. We had basically 3 polls that we've been shooting out the past, 2 weeks now. The first one was, should Bo Pelini be fired? We had 45 total votes on that. 18 people said if he doesn't make changes under him, then yes. 12 people said absolutely not. 3 were undecided. 5 said let's wait until after the Iowa game and see what happens there. And 7 people said yes. We also had a couple of comments from Steven and from Marshall, but I'm not going to read them because we're kind of just moving through this here. Our second poll we said, we posted after the Iowa game, should Bo Pelini be fired? And we had 29 total votes. 7 people said yes. 3 were undecided. And 19 people said no. That was the more surprising poll.
Well, that's because they just won. I mean,
oh yeah,
it was the way they won too.
Yeah.
I mean, they grounded out. They came back in overtime, and that was such a Bo Pelini-esque win.
Mm-hmm.
That was Bo Pelini's entire career in one game.
In one game, and it was his last game too. You gotta love it. Only 20 votes on this third poll. We're still taking votes, of course, right now, and if anybody has any more votes, you should go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/delayofgame. We have our poll posted there. You have to scroll down a little bit for it, but it reads, Bo Pelini has been fired. What's your reaction? 6 people say, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this move. 5 people say, I'm very unhappy with this decision. And 9 people, the majority at 45%, if you will, say, I'm excited to move forward with a new head coach. So
no one knows how to feel.
Exactly. It's kind of out of those 20 people, that's, they don't exactly know. So continuing on, I guess, we will, as I said, we will have the list that I put together of coaches. One interesting note, I just want to point this out right now. By the way, we should also mention Will Grubb from Sports Radio 610 in Houston will be joining us at 6:30. Connor Happer is going to join us on Delay of Game on KRNU2 tonight at 8:25 for his reaction. He was with me yesterday when we were on from the Pinnacle Bank Arena to break the news. But we, of course, as some of you may remember, Paul Thurston is a co-host on that show, Delay of Game on KRNU2 at 8. So you will definitely, most certainly want to tune in at 8 o'clock on KRNU2, which can be found at krnu.unl.edu. That is going to be, I have no idea what Paul's thoughts are. I haven't talked to him.
I don't even know if he'll be able to comment on it.
I hope he will say something. I am praying that he will basically balance it out.
Yeah, they've been very
they were
talkative
on Twitter.
So
yeah, so I guess we'll see.
And
but I'm
by the
hoping,
way, good for Paul for playing. He played well.
Yes,
he had one snap that was a little iffy, but other than that, I was watching him. He played well. He did a very good job.
Oh wait, I have the sound turned off.
Paul Thurston.
Great second half for Paul, and he was shaky. There were some flags thrown on him.
That's you're the third string center going into the season, and now all of a sudden you're thrust into a spot where fans have been unbelievably critical with every reason to be critical. After that first rough snap, you didn't really notice any iffy snaps, so a good job by Paul.
Yeah, we're hoping that he will be here tonight. We are praying mainly because I created a special open for him too. So now he really has to show up. So hopefully Paul will be there, but still tune in anyway. Paul Thurston, Christian Folsom, they'll be joining me at 8 on KRNU2 at krnu.unl.edu. We will take a break. Long first hour, of course, as expected, reacting to Bo Pelini being fired. Big thanks to Ben McLaughlin, and Lanny Holstein. We'll have more reaction and thoughts. We'll take a look at this Iowa game and how Tommy Armstrong somehow threw 4 touchdown passes. Can you believe that? That happened on Friday afternoon. So we'll discuss that. And before we go to break, let's get to this.
Time now for
The delay of game. Random fact or facts of the day.
Brought to you by Jazzy Vibes. Yes! Fact 1. Michael Snow.
Mine's kind of a fact, I guess. It's
kind of?
Yeah. So
it's either a fact or it's not.
Bovada came out with its list of coaches and the odds, and currently Scott Frost, not too many people surprised, is the leader at a 5-2 odds, but kind of a surprise to me is Greg Schiano.
Yeah.
Is their second. He's the second guy at 15-4 odds. Tom Herman, I think he's the offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Correct.
Is a 4-1 odds, and Pat Narduzzi 9-2, Jim McElwain 5-1. Jerry Kill, which is kind of surprising, 13-2 odds, and then Matt Wells, the Utah State head coach.
That's a joke.
There's no way 7-1, and Tressel's
no.
not even listed, which, I mean, to me is surprising just because the amount of talk. You figure if Vegas knows he's not going to be there or knows something, they're going to put him on just to take money. But Tressel not listed in the top 7, so there it is.
I just got a text from Paul Thurston. And he says he can't be on the show tonight. Oh, that's a bummer. He says,
Ryan, what is the number to our show? Somebody just asked me.
You can call. Actually, they can call you because you're in the sports booth. 402-472-8274. That's how you can call in. Michael is working the phones. Paul Thurston just texted me, and Christian saying, I have a football meeting with the O-line to discuss what's going on. That's kind of important, obviously, because guess what? There's still a bowl game to be played. Barney Cotton is kind of now leading this charge in that bowl game, which we're going to discuss about that in a little bit.
You know what?
I
thought that was good. I thought that was funny.
It's kind of an important meeting for Paul, so I guess we'll give him a break. But it's really sad. Man, oh, darn. Well, we'll have to have him on next week. Anyways, we will take a break again. Facebook.com/delay of game. At Twitter, at DOGKRNU, or you can use the hashtag DOG903. 402-472-8274. Michael is standing by. We're putting him to a little bit more big-time work tonight because, of course, you all know Bo Pelini got fired. It's time to take some big-time measures here on the program. Oh, we're still doing random facts, aren't we? I'm sorry, Cody. Let's get to you.
Fact 2.
Cody Broder.
We can do them after the break if you want. We can cut it in half.
We'll do them right now, and then we'll go to break.
All right, I'm sticking with football. It's actually the NFL, though. J.J. Watt had his 3rd touchdown reception of the season this weekend. Receivers,
incredible.
He has more touchdown receptions than
Wes
Welker,
I saw this.
Larry Fitzgerald, Vincent Jackson, Riley Cooper, Andre Johnson, and Miles Austin.
That's incredible.
And just looking at the list, off the top of my head, I think 4 of those guys have been to the Pro Bowl multiple times.
Aren't all 3 of his receptions touchdowns?
Yep.
He has 5 touchdowns this season.
3 catches, 3 touchdowns,
yeah.
and then 2 defense. He's a freak.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a defensive MVP in however long, and he's winning the MVP. He has to.
Yeah. Yeah.
He has to.
He's defensive player of the year.
I think if the Packers win out, Aaron Rodgers is going to win it. I think that's the only guy that can take it, though.
I guess I could see that, too.
I'm sorry, I have to read this. Dirk Chatlin just tweeted, I know coaching searches are goofy, but I just saw a report calling East Carolina's 31-year-old offensive coordinator the number 3 candidate for NU, Nebraska. Come on, man. That's from Dirk Chatlin, and I agree. I think ECU's head coach, who is on my list, is a potential candidate. That's Ruffin McNeil. Not their offensive coordinator, though. I don't know why you would have that. I mean, unless you want to bring him to Nebraska to be the offensive coordinator here. But, oh, gosh. Anyways, we're slowly working our way to the break here.
Fact 3.
Ryan Swanigan.
So, Bo Pelini averaged 3.5 draft picks over 7 seasons for Husker players going to the NFL during his time as the head coach at Nebraska. That's via the Big Red Today, Omaha World Herald, or World Herald Big Red on Twitter. That is fewer than Bill Callahan, Frank Solich, and Tom Osborne from Osborne's time from 1985 to 1998. 97. So, there you go. Oh, yes. So finally, we will take a break, and we will come back. We will take a look at this list that I've compiled and agree or disagree here. We will have more reaction. We'll take a quick look at the Iowa game. We will also do buy or sell. It's a huge show. We're also going to have Cody Broder's NFL recap because it was kind of a big weekend in the NFL, believe it or not, that took place. That is all next. It's a huge delay of game. Facebook.com/delay of game at DOG on DOGKRNU on Twitter, hashtag DOG903. Back after this here on 90.3 KRNU. 90.3 KRNU. 90.3 KRNU. 90.3 KRNU. 90.3 KRNU. 90.3 KRNU.